we're finally back with more Xbox Live Arcade. This time we're taking a look at evolved arcade games. From sequels to remakes, these were designed to modify the classics into something new and exciting at the time. So expect wacky game modes, neon graphics, and off-putting 3D models. Several of today's games are delisted, but what's worse than that is that the whole dang storefront might be shutting down soon. Earlier this year, metadata was found on the Xbox support page, announcing a closure date of May 20th, 2023. Then, after much uproar, they came out to admit it was a mistake? But was it though? This formally written statement with a specific date attached? Their update did inform us of multiple new delistings though, including Daytona USA, which I covered less than a year ago. Through this, I've just discovered that an arcade port of Final Fight exists, which I guess I missed out on. For the still public games that interest you, I suggest getting on this soon. You'll still be able to download these games once they're gone, so long as they've been purchased. I'm assuming that'll always be the case, but, well, who knows for sure. 1942 Joint Strike. This is a remake of the original 1942 arcade shmup. Not to be confused with a remaster like R-Type Dimensions, this aims to be more of its own thing while keeping the spirit of the original. Your goal is simple: shoot everything that moves and collect power-ups that appear. Despite having a large impact on this genre, I've felt the original 1942 doesn't hold up too well as it's quite repetitive. This new version has more environments, new special moves, and gigantic boss fights to keep you interested. You can still buy it for $10. Arkanoid Live. This is a bit simpler. It's a classic game of Arkanoid with sharper graphics and sound. Your goal is to break all the rectangles to proceed to the next stage. There are 120 stages to complete, so you do get a lot of bang for your buck here. The Live title refers to the ability to play co-op and versus modes online. You've also got 2-player local multiplayer, which is lots of fun. You can still buy this one for $10. Battlezone, a remake of the classic tank shooter in a 3D environment. To play, just shoot whatever oncoming tanks and UFOs appear on your radar. I appreciate that the original arcade controls were considered. The player will turn each wheel of the tank using the corresponding thumbsticks. The effects and amount of debris from explosions would have made this somewhat exciting in 2008, and 10 years ago it might have been neat in VR, but today, I'd rather play classic Battlezone if only for the old school vector graphics. That version is included, by the way. Whatever wowing factor this remake had is gone, so nowadays it's rather boring. But if you're interested, it still sells for $4. Bobble Neo. Shoot bubbles at all the enemies on screen, then make them pop to clear a stage. This includes 2 modes. The classic mode gives you the original experience with kinda awkward new 3D models. The landscapes are barely updated, which makes this remix look rather strange. Arranged mode is where this one shines, with new levels, obstacles, and the ability to play with up to 4 people. I'm not a fan of the new graphics, but in terms of gameplay, this is a great way to get your Bubble fix. It sells for $10. BurgerTime World Tour. This is our first delisted game today. You can play as your personal avatar in this one. That's fun. The animations are kinda janky, but whatever. This is an expanded 3D remake of BurgerTime. The goal is to create giant burgers by running over its ingredients. You'll need to be more considerate of vertical space in this game, as the player needs to climb ladders to reach the topmost ingredients. All the while, avoid or sprinkle pepper at those crazy food monsters giving chase. I think they've done a great job modernizing this game. It's addictive and successfully maintains the fun factor of the original. Bust-A-Move Live. The Bubble Puzzler is back with new graphics and sound. Match the colors and don't fill the board. That's about it. Yeah, this doesn't do much beyond the online play, but it's still an enjoyable version of the game. I love the relaxing atmosphere it has, with the calming soundtrack mixed with those colorful visuals. 2-player local battles are fun too. You can pick this one up for $10. Choplifter HD. The goal of the game is to take off in your chopper to save innocent people amidst a war. This release has all the gameplay of the original, but aims to be more gritty and realistic. The environments are war-torn, with ongoing combat in the distance while playing. In the game's dialogue, there's a fair amount of cheese, so as to not make it feel too serious.
I'll get you an 8x10.
Say something nice about me on TV.
In addition to the classic gameplay, you'll also have missions where the player has to destroy enemy targets and escape. This remake feels great to play with its fluid controls and engaging gameplay. It sells for $10. Frogger Hyper Arcade Edition. And the award for the most shameless Daft Punk knockoff goes to... But yes, Frogger. Get your frogs from the road to the other side of the river. In the Hyper Arcade Edition, you're given a bunch of fun modes to play. Paint the Tile, Twin Frogger, Tile Capture, Lady Frog Rescue, Battle Royale, and of course, Classic. They're all quite creative. I especially loved Paint the Tile. There are many graphical styles that the player can choose from. You want to play with Contra sprites? DDR? The choice is yours. I haven't had this much fun with Frogger in a long time. I recommend this one. It sells for $10. Galaga Legions DX. The famous Galaga is back in the form of a bullet hell. Praised at the time for its visuals, this is a wild spin on Galaga that changes and removes a majority of the original mechanics. I found the default graphics were a bit overwhelming as the bright visuals crowded up the screen. I switched to something simpler and yeah, that's much better. Galaxian bias aside. Legions DX is chaotic to a degree that makes it fun for a quick romp, but I can't imagine sinking considerable time into this, especially considering the lack of multiplayer. This goes for $10. Hydro Thunder Hurricane. The original Hydro Thunder was great fun in arcades. Then came this digital sequel, Hurricane. You'll drive speedboats as you race against 16 computer opponents in some truly wacky environments. It's got all your favorite arcade-isms like temporary power-ups, boosts, ridiculous vehicle designs, and explosive barrels. There's also local multiplayer, which I've had a lot of fun with before.
Hey, I can see my house from here.
At first there isn't much unlocked, so you'll have to play through the 4 modes to collect credits in order to move on. This game never gets old. Missile Command. You'll be protecting the cities below from incoming attacks by using your anti-air defenses. There's something about the atmosphere of this one, it just feels wrong. The original arcade game was tense and pressuring, whereas this feels like the Fisher-Price version, you know what I mean? Fast-paced electronic music, flashy futuristic cities, that generic electricity sound that plays constantly. Well, at least the gameplay isn't too bad. It definitely feels like Missile Command. I will say the indirect lines of electricity you fire are wild and distracting. The original game is included here, and I find that much better, so I don't expect to ever play this one again. $3 for the original game and this weirdness? Yeah, it's not a bad deal. Mr. Driller Online. This one's been delisted. Mr. Driller Online is to the point, giving you just the standard dig and quest mode. In quest mode, a new objective is added every 100 miles. If the player doesn't fulfill it, the game ends. You get to select from 6 different characters, each with different stats. But regardless, they don't make a huge difference in the gameplay. Apparently when this launched, the online multiplayer was so buggy that it was known to crash consoles. GameSpot ended up nominating this as one of 2008's worst video games. Really, it's not that bad, but there is very little content here. Not even local multiplayer. OutRun Online Arcade. Another delisted game, which from my experience is the most talked about of the bunch. I can see why. Driving an OutRun is a thrill. You get a real sense of speed with the cities whizzing by and the subtle vibrations of your car. You've got some fun bonuses here, like this one mode where you have to meet the demands of your girlfriend to score heart points. The excessive use of emojis. This was a simpler time. Strong recommendation from me. Just too bad it's gone. Pac-Man Championship Edition DX Plus. This was a very popular game at one point. You probably know how to play Pac-Man, but this is a new Pac-Man with a variety of game modes. The original had a big focus on keeping your distance from intelligent AI ghosts. You'll still be doing that here, but the objective is much different. This time, the game's about following a certain path and, when powered up, eating as many ghosts as possible. Do this before the timer runs out. There are many fun spins on this formula that are introduced as you unlock more levels. You can change the graphics at the start of a game, which is a nice bit of variety to keep things fresh. I'm not sure if you can still buy this on 360. The only one that comes up is the standard edition, and that sells for $10. Space Invaders Extreme. I remember this being ported all over the place. It's almost a rhythm game. Simple club music plays as your melodic gunfire plays along. It's good that they've stuck to a basic color scheme for the main graphics. Otherwise, they might be hard to pick out in this sea of flashing neon lights. Extreme is about making every board stand out, not only with unique placements, but also shields and a fever mode, where you can collect significantly more points. I know points aren't too exciting these days, but this game plays it up like a casino. It's an exciting game, and for the $10 price tag, I totally recommend it. Space Invaders Infinity Gene. This one has a very experimental feel to it. The intro is quite bizarre, dropping you into a basic game of Space Invaders, followed by a Charles Darwin quote about adapting to change. At first I thought the game was a little extra, but after enough time spent, it begins to make sense. It's Space Invaders, except the game itself is constantly evolving, with new patterns and mechanics to adapt to. It's a neat idea, and I won't bother to spoil too much of it since that seems to be part of the fun. I will mention, however, that you can actually use music tracks from your 360's hard drive to create custom stages. It's not always accurate, but you might get some cool results. This one sells at $10. Star Raiders. Alright, not a game from the arcades exactly, but it's classic Atari, so similar vibes. This is a take on the original space combat sim, now developed by Incinerator Studios. I haven't played too many games from this genre, but I'm sure that Star Raiders 2011 is not a good example. It starts with this odd, almost Saturday morning cartoon plot, which is an unusual effort sitting next to its remarkably uninteresting gameplay.
Me? I was just your average whiz kid looking for a shot at glory.
You're given a short list of objectives at the start of a level, which is usually to shoot something like enemy craft or turrets on a nearby ship. But first, you'll need to adjust to the jerky controls. It's a pain to play, or listen to. This soundtrack is just soulless. I like this review I found for it on Steam. Even at just $5, I can't recommend this one. Strider, another excellent evolution. In this hack and slash, you'll quickly dash from room to room while slicing enemies to pieces with your ever-expanding moveset. The player has great mobility, allowing you to climb just about any surface, even ceilings. Levels are designed with this in mind, so it's not just a gimmick. Strider is very fast-paced, though be warned as sometimes it's rather difficult. Thankfully, there's plenty of checkpoints. Having to restart isn't usually a bother, though I've heard of some frustrations later into the game. This one sells for $15 instead of $10. I wonder how common that is. This is Tetris Splash, another delisted game. It's just regular Tetris with an aquatic theme. The sprint game mode is also included, but that's about it. At least there's achievements. People used to joke about this game from its inclusion of an aquarium screensaver in the options. But don't you talk smack about this thing, because I actually use it when I'm idling my 360. This is less stressful for the console than leaving it on the Aurora dashboard. Now you know, and the downloads of Tetris Splash are exploding. Probably not. Initially this game sold for $10, and yeah, that's a bit steep. TMNT Reshell. This delisted beat-em-up is fairly controversial. It got some bad reviews back when. Fans disliked the 3D graphics and felt cheated out by them sticking to arcade functionality instead of incorporating improvements from the SNES version. That seems to be the release that more people are familiar with. There was also upset about the game being just the arcade mode with nothing else new to it. But I can't say this is atypical for a marketplace listing. Even disregarding that, I don't see what's so bad about this game. I think it's accurate enough being an XBLA remake. And does it really look that bad? This coming from someone who did play the arcade version with friends long ago. In fact, I played this with the same friend here, and we really liked it. Note that neither of us have played the SNES version before, so all I can say is, you decide on this one. No wait, you can't, it's delisted. That's all for today. If you'd like to hear more from me in the future, consider subscribing to the channel. See you next time.